Autism is a condition that many parents deal with as they are raising their children. And our guest today, April Ratchford, is going to give us insight into living with autism and thriving. Even though some people may think it's a limitation, she's going to tell you how to really get the best life possible for your child. Stick around for this episode. You don't want to miss it. Like and subscribe. Hi, thank you so much for joining the Falling for Learning podcast. We have this podcast to help parents and caregivers with having the resources, strategies, and tools needed to make sure that their children are on track for learning and to stay on track for success. Thank you so much for joining us today, April Ratchford. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, so we always ask our guests, very first thing is, what is that thing that made you fall in love with learning?
I'm going to say it was my own kiddo. I went back to school at 35 to become an occupational therapist for him. We
Okay.
found out he was autistic.
Okay.
And at the time, I was going back for my BSN in nursing. And when we found out, yeah, definitely he had autism, I switched my major and went straight through 7 years to get my master's in occupational therapy.
So you were going back. Did you already have your bachelor's before, or you didn't have your bachelor's?
I didn't. I was a licensed practical nurse. And the one thing I always promised my late mother is she said, I know you have your licensed practical nursing degree, which she put me through school for. She said, but I don't want you to stop. Please go get your degree. And I did. I went back and I got my bachelor's and master's.
And you really had that why when you found out that your son had, autism,
Yes.
and really that really spurred you to keep moving, not even just bachelor's, just moving through to get your master's.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
wonderful. Okay, so what about as you were learning and really going through your studies, what really helped to push you forward as you were moving, and what made it so interesting, besides of course your son had it, but what other parts of it that was really compelling for you?
The fact that it's so different from what people really think. Like when people think autism, they automatically think that all children are just on the spectrum and they can't do anything. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
my son was very, very functional, very social, very outgoing. And they're like, he can't have autism. And I was like, well, he does. He didn't speak until he was about two and a half.
Okay.
He was lining up his toys. He did all the things, but he was very, very emotional. He wanted hugs, very outgoing, very bright. And so my sister, who is also an occupational therapist, she was one before I became one. She looked at me and she was like, she pegged him at 2. And she was like, he's got autism. I was like, oh, no, no, he's just so high. She was like, there's not a kid I haven't met that lines up his toys and Thomas the Tank Engine is not on the spectrum. And she was right. And
Mm.
now that we've gone down the road and know more about it in 2025 versus way back in 2004, we know that being African American, those children present different than their Caucasian peers. So,
Oh, okay. So let me back up for a little bit. When your sister told you that, was there a little rift or there, or you just kind of listened to her? Were you feeling
well,
upset?
actually, no. I was like, because she knew so much than I did. She knew a
Right.
whole. I respected my sister so
Okay.
much because
Okay.
I was a nurse. I helped put her through OT school. So when she said he's got autism, I was like, oh, we didn't know that much. So
Mm-hmm.
of course we didn't think about high functioning autism at that time because all you heard
Right.
was autism kids on having meltdowns in stores. She
Mm.
knew her own son, my oldest nephew, had autism. And
Okay.
she elected to not give him that title. She was like, we're not even going to test him because back in '97 when he was born, she was like, if I gave him a label, they're just going to limit him with the label.
I see.
So I'm not even going to do that to him. We're just going to push him through and do what we do. And she treated him just like every other kid. What she learned in OT, she just applied to him, and he graduated from college, Bethune Cookman, with his
Okay.
IT. So,
Okay.
yeah, that's
Strategies
how we
that work.
started.
Strategies that work. So I want to take you back to the part where you said that African American boys or African Americans, period, present differently.
They do present differently, and it's because of culture. So think about it. So in our culture, we just present differently because we have so much other things going on. We're taught to overcome, to strive, to
Mm,
as community, we're just going to be like, that's okay. We'll just overcome this hurdle and we'll just push and we'll just go on. We don't sit
yes.
and think about why is this kid not talking? But then knowing how our culture is, if we have a ton of cousins around, guess where our kids are? With the other cousins. And what do kids do? They mimic after other kids. That's why I'm
Yeah.
late diagnosed autistic. Why we didn't
Okay.
catch it? I had a cousin same age as I was. I just mimicked after her. I didn't speak until
I
I was
see.
2.5, but no one caught it because I had somebody else I could mimic exactly off. So that's how that works, and we don't know until you look back and you're like, this is why I was so quiet. This is why I'm awkward. This is why social things don't work for me or I melt down. And same thing for boys. We just or in certain situations and it's unfortunate and we're still fighting this. Like
Hmm.
we all know that oftentimes we're misdiagnosed. Boys get
Yes.
oppositional defiance disorder.
Yes.
Um, a lot of anxiety. Oh, they have ADHD. Well, how do you know? Because those symptoms present as well in autism, or
Okay.
they overlap. I have a younger nephew who is both autistic and ADHD.
Okay.
So,
Okay, so what do you recommend? Because you were saying your sister with back in '97, as he was growing up, she was like, "I'm not going to put on the label. I am though educated and trained, so I'm going to really support him on my own." How would you go about that now? Are you saying it's better to go ahead and get the label, or depends on your give us information?
so if you have younger kids and
Hmm.
you're like, okay, what do I do now? It's 2025. Testing is better. It's not that autism didn't exist. It's just that nothing was ever caught because
Yeah.
testing wasn't that great.
Right.
And if you know, you know. Parents know there's something awkward with their kid.
Yes.
You know. And I'm I'm not going to tell you that there are not therapists out there that won't gaslight you and make you think you're nuts.
Yeah.
Because the first time I took my kid to be tested at 7, they were like, "Oh, that's just anxiety." And I'm looking at them and I'm like, "What does a 6-year-old have to be anxious about? He's 6. You don't think that's awkward?" I'm
So what
like,
I'm so what I'm hearing is advocate, and you can get them to have them get tested, but you have to also vet your sources, right? Like if
right.
it doesn't sound right, if they, get a second opinion, um and they
Trust
might be
your gut.
misdiagnosing them, right? They might say, "Oh, this is just anxiety, this is just ADHD." So it sounds like, in the multitude of
Right.
counselors, there's
Multitude.
safety.
We're
Yeah.
multitude. Trust your gut. You know. If you have that ping and somebody is dismissing you, smile at the nice people and leave. You don't
Yeah.
have to argue. There are lots of resources out there. If you can't find it in your community, you can come online. Like if you can I will find it for you. If you
Mm,
can't find it, I will find somebody, I will talk to my sibling. We will find online resources for you.
Okay.
You don't have to feel like you're alone. There are communities out there that are big supports. And now that it's known, more research, especially in Black communities, now they're popping up to support one another because
Okay.
you don't have to face it alone. So, parents, if you know your kid is not quite, you know, there's something not quite right, you don't have to trust your pediatrician. If they're dismissing you, that means you take your kid somewhere else and
Okay.
don't feel guilty.
Okay. So one thing that you were talking about, it's when you said when you fell in love with learning, it was when you decided to go back to school. So as a kid with autism that you were saying you found out later that you were autistic, what were some challenges that, in your learning journey?
So if I didn't like it, I would zone completely out. And I noticed that in my master's program. And I had a best friend. She was like, I don't understand why you're having so much trouble in A&P. You can do this right with me. But if I had a 3 hour test, my attention span is gone after 1 hour. I'm like, that's a lot. That's a lot for somebody who is used to like 1 hour test, I'm gone. So I knew there was a problem. So I had a professor send me over to the psych department and they were like, hey, you might be ADHD or ADD. And I was like, are you sure? I don't feel hyperactive. But then I would go down rabbit holes of things that are super interesting. And then my sister, she used to call me Rain Man because I would just do random facts of things. She goes, why do you know this? And I'm like, I don't know. Like she used to be like, you know these sports stats for no reason. I'm like, I don't know. I just know these things.
Yeah,
But if I love a subject, like I love history in school, like old Eastern European history, I excelled in that.
I
Would it
see.
get me anywhere in life except for teaching? No. I loved it.
Okay, so in school you would zone out if you didn't like things, and then
Mhm.
of course you would like be hyper fixated on certain things. Okay. And so as you were thinking about strategies for people, what is something that parents get wrong as they're like trying to interact or support their kids that may be autistic, or there's something wrong, they're not sure what it is?
So I know in the age of social media and gaming, it's incredibly difficult when kids love gaming. It's a dopamine hit.
Mhm.
And my kiddo was unlike loves gaming. However, it's a dopamine hit, and you got to be careful with those screens because as soon as they're little, that's their instant dopamine hit. It's like a drug, same
Yeah.
pathway.
Okay.
And it's so easy, especially when you're dealing with a kid with autism. It's exhausting, especially if you don't have any supports or respite care.
Mhm.
Parents, I'm going to tell you, it doesn't go away at 18 either. And when you think it's when it's mellowed out like at 12, puberty hits and they lose their minds. And it everything goes by the wayside, and you're like, "What just happened to my kid? My kid just got hijacked." And you're like, "They're jerks." We forget the same thing happens to neurotypical kids happens to our autistic kid, except our autistic kid is like emotionally behind too, and we're like,
Okay.
"You, it's." I'm sorry, parents, it's a lot. And then
Mhm.
on top of that, you got therapists who are teaching kids to mask. And then here we are telling kids, be yourself. And I'm like, okay. And then
Hmm.
parents are masking because they feel bad, because the world is making them feel bad, because their kid is autistic. And I'm like, this is not how this is supposed to be. It's exhausting. And people wonder why parents are isolated, don't go out, and then we have all the issues.
Okay, so I want to. One thing, you have a terminology you're using, masking. And
Mhm.
just to make sure that everyone, the audience members, know what you're referring to, you're saying the therapist shows them to do that, and parents end up, doing that too. So tell us more about what masking is, because I'm sure maybe we don't have that. We may not use that terminology for what it is.
So if you're in the Black community, you know automatically like code switching.
Okay.
It's the same thing as masking. It's like you're putting on one face to go out into society to blend in. We're
Mm-hmm.
teaching kids to blend in so they're like everybody else.
Okay.
And it's the same thing as we tell ourselves we're code switching because going out in the world, we know we can't be our authentic selves in the workplace because sometimes it's not safe to do that and it's exhausting.
I get it.
So masking is
So
just another term just
another
to
term,
like,
code
hey,
switching, or just putting on a specific face. Maybe
mm,
I'm very upset or unhappy, but I'm, hello, how are you?
right. Or they know, okay, I see all my friends in this corner and all these peers just yelling and screaming, and I'm like, hey, do I have to? I guess I have to blend in with these people and look and act like them in order to be accepted.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, if you're a kid, that's all you want is to be accepted by a
Right.
peer group. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what you do. You mask so you're accepted by a peer group. But over time, that gets exhausting. And if you do it enough, you go into what we call autistic burnout, which is completely different from burnout for neurotypicals, where you're going to
Okay.
see kids get irritable, you're going to see depression, you're going to see them spiraling into meltdowns. Adults can do the same thing. You can see
Okay.
them self sabotaging their schoolwork. It's a lot. And parents can do the same thing. It's you're teaching parents to just mask and be this, no, my kid is great. Everything is fine. They want everything to be typical because they feel ashamed that their kid has autism because they're surrounded by neurotypicals and they feel like my kid should be like this too. And
Okay.
that's not right.
The Rewrite Method and the Rewrite Method Workbook are your go to resource for helping kids to learn to fall in love with writing. It has the tips, tools, resources, strategies, and skill building activities to help kids fall out of writing hate and into loving to write. Get your book set today. We have today Tiffany's tip on play based learning.
Using water, anything that engages all of the senses, like water, right? That engages touch and the hearing and the sight and the smell. All the senses are engaged in this activity. So that's what you want to think about when you think about sensory play.
Okay.
Play Doh, water, tapioca pearls. You can boil those and they're like squishy and they have like this
Mm,
interesting texture and you can dye them different colors. So that's
okay.
really cool for, younger kids and bigger kids too. I mean, hey, it doesn't have to be an age limit. But having them do things that also help build their fine motor skills, like um, for example, filling and pouring different vessels is a great way to engage those skills with sensory play, Play Doh rolling and cutting. They have little cutters and just engaging in all those kinds of activities like that. And then, of course, like building blocks is a great way to work on all kinds of math, colors, thinking about like um, learning about like dimension as well with the blocks and um, maybe building a town or a home or, we can go on and on, with blocks, whether it be Legos or wooden blocks or plastic blocks, whatever.
I think you said magnet tiles. Are those the
Oh
same?
yeah, magnetiles are so cool because they're like these translucent, colored tile like blocks, and they
Hmm.
have magnets on the sides, and so they stay together when you build your structure. You can put things inside them. You can even make like those like marble run type structures where you have different levels, and you can put balls or cars, and they can roll
Oh,
down and around.
okay.
It's cool. Since they're translucent, you use them on light tables or with flashlights or little. I like to use those little candles. The little battery operated tea light
Oh, yes, yes,
candles. Put
yes.
those in and kind of light up your house.
Now that we're hearing, okay, get your child assessed, you know, find out a second opinion if things aren't
Mhm.
feeling right. So let's talk a little bit about like what that treatment is like, or because you're saying masking is something that a therapist might show. Would you move away from that therapist if they're showing them to mask, or like what are we thinking?
I This is my personal opinion, and every parent is different.
Okay.
But there are therapists out there that are neurodiverse therapists that work specifically for autistic kids and their parents because it's now a more open domain. Because it
Okay.
used to be, you didn't hear about therapists saying, I'm an autistic occupational therapist. You didn't hear that. That was
Mm,
not a thing. So you
okay.
can find that. You want to find a therapist that understands, hey, I know what it's like to be X, Y, and Z.
Okay.
You necessarily want someone that doesn't just say, hey, I'm a neurodiverse therapist. You want to see if they know the language.
Okay.
Because anybody can say they're a neurodiverse therapist. I'm like, well, can you walk the walk? Are you autistic? Do you understand what that means? Especially if your child is also a minority. Do you understand that culture? Do you understand what that child needs in their community?
Hmm.
Because that's going to be a whole new aspect as well.
Can you give me an example that where a therapist who may be not diverse or of color is not maybe misunderstand or may not know to support with?
Um, you may assume, therapists may assume that it's a two-parent household and say, okay, well, mom, can you do all these listed things? And mom is a single parent household with two other kids. And how do you know that doesn't have two or three jobs? Did you ask mom, hey, mom, what can I do for you that makes this doable?
Yeah.
Instead of giving them a laundry list of things that you can do.
That's a good point, right? Because we know that, social economically, because of historic, racism and,
The systemic.
that we just don't having that the money is not right, the assets or the
Mhm.
money is not there, so you're living closer to the poverty line, even if you may be college educated or something, you still may need to work several jobs, or
Mhm.
yeah, there's a lot of things there. Yeah, people may not know and they might just assume.
Right.
That's a good point. That's good.
Because
Yeah.
people look at me, they're like, oh, you're an occupational therapist. Yeah, and so what? I'm still paying off school loans. I pay for my son's college education. What makes you think I'm rolling in money?
Yeah.
You're assuming. Don't assume that my story is just this butterflies and rainbows and sunshine. That's not how my world works. Ask me.
Yes. So maybe the assumption. Yes. I've heard assumptions like that a lot where people are like, yeah, just have your dad pay for your college. Just have your, and it's like, you don't understand what's going on in my world, obviously.
Exactly. You don't see understand where I come from, do you?
All you have to do is take that couple of weeks off or whatever, whatever it is, they just assume. Yeah, very good. So, as people are wondering if their child will be diagnosed or waiting for the assessment or the appointment or whatever, where are some places to go, um, you know, to seek help?
You can go to, and I'm not going to lie, because if you're on state welfare systems like Medicaid, and every state is different,
Yeah.
that list of therapists can be a long list. But usually, you can find sliding scale places now that
Okay.
the online, because due to COVID, lots of places have popped up online. You can find sliding scale. Um, the great thing about that as well, you don't necessarily always need a therapist. There are great coaches,
Mm,
neurodiverse coaches, and parents don't think of that. They also do sliding scale.
nice.
And even with teenagers, like sometimes teenagers don't do well with therapists because they're stubborn. They may do better with a coach, somebody that gives them goals and says, hey, what is it that you want for your life? Because for whatever reason, teenagers are not going to really talk to you and think you are crazy. They don't really think you were a teenager either. I,
Right.
I'm sorry, parents. I promise you, I
You
lived
came
it,
into the world old.
and I promise I they will get there. I got my son's 23. Finally got him off to college at Marshall. So it will. It can't happen.
Yes, yes, yes,
It's
yes.
just the process.
It is the
But
process.
you can find them coaches that will do sliding scales. And lo and behold, I know this sounds weird, the tick of the talk, TikTok. I don't know what it is, but there's lots of neurodiverse um, people out there that are saying their story
Okay.
that will connect with younger people. And Discord, I know parents are like, what on Discord? You've got to meet them where they are in their technology.
I love that. So, so many gems, right? So, you can go to the tick of the talk, as you call it. No.
I'm a Gen Xer, the tick of the talk.
That so TikTok, there's people you can find. You can have coaches, not just therapists. Um, there are a lot of online. I mean, that really changed things for me. It just made things much more convenient
Mhm.
to have people that you could just access online rather than going. I live in the LA area, so traffic and work and all of
Listen,
that.
that's why I tell people like sometimes your area, because I live in Kentucky, it sucks. So, if, especially down south where healthcare is not as great and you're not near your resources,
Mhm.
coaches, you can find them globally.
That's
If they're
wonderful.
coach and if they're specialized, you can find them and they're neurodiverse and it's helpful. And if they can't help, they will put you in the right direction. And that's what I
Okay.
love about the autistic community. They can't find it, they will point you in the right direction. We're a global community. So we'll find somebody to help you.
Okay. Can you tell me more about your adulting with autism?
So I started my podcast, Adulting with Autism, in honor of my own kid when he came out of high school, and it was during COVID, and it was one of those blah blahs. He went to college, and he crashed and burned, and
Mm,
crashed and burned hard. And people are like, "But you're an OT," and I'm like, "I don't do peds." So I was like, "Where are the OTs that are supposed to help the autistic young adults transition to adulthood?" And I
mm,
couldn't find anybody in my area. I couldn't find a podcast. I couldn't find anything that would connect with him. And I was like, and it killed his self esteem so badly that he was wilting. And I was like, I was technically I was bitching like for like a month. And finally my fiance threw a mic at me and said, "Start a podcast." And I
that's
did.
hilarious.
Yeah, listen, I'm not a
Be
people.
the change.
Right. I'm like, I'm not, I was looking for another OT to be the change. I'm like, I'm not trying to be the change. That's not what I do. And here I am, like January 1st, 2026. I'm going on my third season. So,
Absolutely. Yay. Wonderful. We're in our third season now of the Falling for Learning podcast. Yeah. I
so
started out of a need as well, right? We really wanted to make sure we can fill in any gaps for parents and educators as their children are maturing and there's changes happening. Yeah, so schools, and of course kids during adolescence change schools. They go to middle school, they go to high school, and then there's sometimes this gap in information. So it's just a place to talk about resources, strategies, and a broad range of things, right? Because there's so many, you never know what your kid needs. So we talk about all the different things and changes and how to get those resources, how to notice what's happening with your kid. So yeah. So nice. So tell us, so Adulting with Autism, where could we get your show?
everywhere there's a platform, there's my show. I'm actually on YouTube as well, so you can see me on video if you choose to want to see this madness. I'm also, yeah, if you want to see the madness, I'm also on an Indian platform as well. So if you're in India, I'm there too.
All right
Um,
now.
I try to fill the gaps for that transition from high school to adulthood because there's nothing there. Because you still need help mental health. You still need help for their independence. They're going to need help job hunting because it's still an 80% unemployment rate, and there shouldn't be. Parents are still going
Mm.
to need help transitioning because parents, I'm going to tell you, when they turn 18, they know they're adults. That's what
And you cannot tell them what to do because they're grown now.
oh my God, I that's a battle because that's going to be your biggest battle because they're going to have the maturity of a 15-year-old and an 18-year-old body, and you're going to want to punch them in the face, and you can't. So it's big changes, and nobody tells parents about these changes because you're going to have to switch it over to be a consultant, and parents don't get the oh crap, they're adults. What do what do
No,
we go from here?
I had a problem being a consultant instead of a mom myself as my daughter was getting going into adulthood. So I definitely had some challenges myself. You could just, you know exactly what they can do. You could give them turn by turn success. And if they just did exactly what you tell them to do, you know,
It would be so much easier. But then you have to
but you
look
are
at
not in
yourself.
control. You are
Right.
not steering. You do not have the steering wheel.
And parents, you gotta look at yourself and be like, did you listen to your parents? And you're like,
Yes.
absolutely not. You didn't. But I
It's
want
their
to tell
turn.
those parents that they do get there, but you have to meet them where they are. And you have to have that real conversation of sit them down and say, what do you want to do? And you can't just shove them into college. That's not going to work. You actually have to sit them down, see where they really are and where they want to go and
Yeah.
what's realistic. And they will tell you. and understand, yeah, when they hit 18, they're still going to have autism and they're still going to be behind their peers and their brains aren't going to fully develop till 25. So that means their maturity still is 18. They may catch up at 30, mature
Mm,
wise. So
okay.
you have, don't sit there and compare yourself to their neurotypical peers. Don't.
Yeah.
It's okay if they're still in your house. They're going to drive you bananas. That's when you sit down and you just got to sit and have some rules. That's when coaching, sit down and have a mediator because you're going to want to be like, this is my house. That's like, no, that doesn't work either.
Yeah.
But it works because a lot of people ask, they're like, well, how's your son? I'm like, he is now a Marshall University freshman in his first semester, computer science emphasis on video game design, taking 14 hours and holding his own.
All
He
right.
So if this gives you any hope, he's in his AutoCAD class. He's the only freshman out of juniors and seniors.
All right.
So it can happen. Does he call me a lot? Absolutely. He will still need guidance, but it's not like he's leaning on me. He just says, hey, I just need a little bit of guidance. Where do I go? Because he knew I went to college. I just
Yeah.
tell him, hey, you might need this office. He's like, great, bye, click, and off he goes.
You might need this office and then he'll go. That's cute. That's I mean
Yeah.
like that's good. That is really shows that you are not you've shifted a consultant. I
No,
like that. That's great.
I'm just consultant. I just pay the just send me the money emails. That's it. If he I'm just gonna tell you parents, like it's gonna be rough going until they get their rhythm because
Mhm.
organization's not gonna come naturally to them. You just have to let them figure it out. And they will figure it out. Does it look
Yeah.
bananas? Yes. I didn't go back to college until I was like 29 and I failed out 5 times. I eventually figured it out.
Yeah, yeah.
So it does happen, but they have to want it. You can't want it for them. And it's okay if they just want jobs.
Mhm.
They can still live independent, productive lives and be happy.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm sure that our audience got so much value from your experience and your insights. Please like, subscribe, and check out April Ratchford's Adulting with Autism podcast. They're going into their third season soon in a few months. And I'm sure you're going to find a lot of strategies, resources, and a place that, you could have some in common experiences as well, right? All right. Anything else you want to tell them before you go? Any website, email?
Um, if you go on my link tree / adulting with autism, it has all my socials. If you email me or DM me, I'll get to you. And if you guys want empowering merch like autistic, authentic, unapologetic, I have all of that for you. So if you feel like that stuff out there isn't for you, I made it for you. So there it is.
Wonderful. Thanks again. And to our audience, make sure you do something today that gives your child the competitive advantage. Have a great week. Thanks again for supporting the Falling for Learning podcast. New episodes go live every Saturday at 5 p.m. You can watch us on youtube.com at Falling for Learning or listen on all major podcast platforms such as Apple, Google, Audible, Spotify, and much more. For more resources, visit fallinginlovewithlearning.com. We really appreciate you. Have a wonderful week.